Hey guys, I just wanted to do kind of a compilation of what happened yesterday with the Megan Boswell case. So I'm sure a lot of you guys seen it, but I was like looking around to find like, okay, where's the verdict? Where's the sentence? And it's just all separate. You have to go find it. So I figured, I'm going to do a video where it's all together. I'm going to put the verdict with the sentence, with the sentencing phase, because there's three people who get up and talk for her on the sentencing phase, and then the jury's sentencing recommendation, and then the interviews with the lawyers after. So I'm going to put it all together in order, and then you have it. So you don't have to go searching for different videos to find each thing. It took me a minute to find some of this stuff. It's like I don't know why it's all separate. I guess it was all at different times. So, but okay, here it is.
The jury are being brought in, and while we won't hear the reading of the verdict, we're going to get a real-time report from our field producer, John Cowley, who is sitting in the gallery, and so he is going to send us an email. So we're going to tell you what the decision is, and then you're going to hear the judge read all the verdict, all of the verdict form on every single count. There are 20 counts total on this one. The judge will read everything live. The foreperson is reading the verdict, or about to, yes, okay, about to read the verdict now. Okay, here we go. And we're going to try to look at Megan Boswell here closely and see if her body language tells us anything. Megan Boswell is guilty of first-degree murder. Oh boy, and you can see a reaction there, couldn't you? Even if we didn't know that, just her body language, her response, looked like her mouth opened up, and then she started covering her face. Guilty of that top count of first-degree murder. That was the biggie. And that's the one that could imprison her for the rest of her life. The jury is going to be making a recommendation on this. After they get done with the reading of the verdict, the court will proceed directly into the sentencing phase. We have the information of the second count now. Guilty on count number 2. Megan Boswell guilty of first-degree murder and guilty of felony murder. That's what we know so far. Covering her mouth. Guilty of count number 3 as well. It looks like she may be starting to cry. Not quite sure here. It's hard to see her eyes covered with those eyeglasses. Megan Boswell is guilty of aggravated child abuse as well. These are the biggies, folks. These top counts are the big ones. They're the crux of the case. First-degree premeditated murder, first-degree murder in perpetration of a felony, the felony being aggravated child abuse. Megan Boswell committing a heinous crime in the murder of her beautiful baby, Evelyn. She's also been found guilty of aggravated child neglect. So I'm looking at the verdict form here, going through all of these. So that would have been count number 5. So we've got first-degree premeditated murder, and we've got some variations of that. We've got straight-up premeditated murder. We've got murder in the perpetration of a felony being aggravated child abuse. And we've got a murder in perpetration of a felony being aggravated child neglect. So she's been found guilty of all 3 of those crimes, as well as aggravated child abuse, aggravated child neglect. The next one is tampering with evidence. She's guilty of that as well, because we know she didn't just commit this crime. She tried to cover it up. The jury has found her guilty of that. The killing of her baby, Evelyn, who was asphyxiated. Asphyxiated. Homicidal violence was how baby Evelyn was taken from this earth at just 15 months of age. She's been found guilty of making a false report, and there are numerous counts of that. I'm counting, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 counts of making false reports. You know, sometimes you will see prosecutors clean up an indictment and proceed on one because all the crimes would merge for sentencing purposes anyway, so a conviction on multiple doesn't really further the ball. But here, no, they went for it. They went for it on every instance where they believe she made one. So we'll continue watching this as the jury foreperson is reading off whether she is guilty or not guilty of these crimes. I want to get some reaction from our legal analyst guest, attorney Matthew Mangino, watching along. Matthew, you called it. You said this was going to be a guilty verdict on first-degree murder. Your thoughts now?
Well, I'm not surprised, Julie, obviously, but if we think back about the evidence in this case, I mean, it's a horrific case. I mean, this is, Evelyn was last seen in late December, and then, the body was found 2 months later. She was suffocated and stuffed into the garbage in Megan's old playhouse on her father's property. This is a 15-month-old child who we also heard from witnesses who wasn't taken care of. She was dirty. She often smelled of urine. So she was neglected before her death, and then she was violently murdered. I'm not surprised that this jury has come back with guilty first-degree murder.
Right, Matthew. And so looking here, it looks like, I'm going to count these as I'm reading them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 counts of making a false report are what prosecutors brought against Megan Boswell. There was a 12th count. That would be count number 18 in the indictment. They dropped that for whatever reason. It was dropped at the start of the trial. And so we're looking at what would be, let's see now, the next crimes as we're going through, she's been found, they're still reading through all of the crimes of false reporting. And then there's going to be 2 more crimes we have yet to hear about: the abuse of a corpse and the failure to report a death under suspicious circumstances. And that would be this entire indictment here. Again, a lengthy indictment. Prosecutors, okay, so we've got word from our team in the courtroom. She's been found guilty on every single count of making a false report here. Matthew Mangino, that really was the focus. It was really the focus before we knew whether or not she did this murder, right? As we hearken back to that time, and I remember it plain as day, because it was a strange time in all of our lives. It was during the pandemic, and right at the start of it, baby Evelyn had gone missing, and then I remember reporting on it when we were all working remotely for Court TV, and it was just like she was portraying herself as a victim to the world, and everybody felt sorry for her. And then, boy, oh boy, did all of that come back to haunt her, didn't it?
Well, it certainly did, and it reminded people who follow cases like this that harking back to Susan Smith or even Casey Anthony, where you would go out on television, publicly say, help me find my daughter, and cry in front of the cameras. So it had that whole feel to it. And then obviously as the case and investigation unfolded, we learned that it isn't what was portrayed early on by Megan Boswell. So, it had that sort of intrigue to it that unfortunately we've become all too familiar with. Right,
Matthew. And thank you for that analysis. I'm looking at our producer's notes. She's been found guilty of abuse of a corpse and failure to report a death under suspicious circumstances. With that, we can report that Megan Boswell has been found guilty of every single crime she's been accused of by the state of Tennessee in the case of the death of her beautiful daughter, baby Evelyn. Baby Evelyn has gotten justice today in this courtroom in Tennessee, with her mother being held legally accountable for her murder. She should be still alive today. She shouldn't have had her life cut short after 15 months on this earth. Just think about that, 15 months. Baby Evelyn, rest in peace, precious angel. And I believe we should be getting an audio signal at any moment to hear from His Honor, as we had to turn our audio down so that we couldn't hear any members of the jury, in particular the foreperson. But the judge is going to repeat the reading of the verdict. And there may be a polling of the jury, which is pretty standard. We will see. Still no audio signal, but you can see the judge addressing the jury. Okay, everybody's on their feet. Perhaps the jury being taken out. Okay, that's what I'm being told. Being told that the jury is exiting the courtroom for His Honor to do the reading of the verdict. So we're going to hear a repeat of the verdict in the courtroom, and we'll see if we get a view of any visible reaction from Megan Boswell. She looked a little teary-eyed, perhaps hard to see the front of her face.
Degree murder. To judgment of this court, you are guilty. In count 2, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of first-degree murder and the perpetration of a felony, it's a judgment of this court, you are guilty. In count 3, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of first-degree murder and the perpetration of a felony, it's a judgment of this court, you are guilty. In count 4, a judgment of your peers having found you guilty of aggravated child abuse, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 5, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of aggravated child neglect, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 6, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of tampering with evidence, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 7, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 8, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 9, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 10, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 11, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 12, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. Count 13, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. Count 14, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 15, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 16, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 17, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of false report, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In count 19, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of abuse of a corpse, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. And in count 20, a jury of your peers having found you guilty of failure to report a death under suspicious, unusual, or unnatural circumstances, it's a judgment of the court, you are guilty. In counts 4 through 20, the jury did not assess a fine, so there will be no fine assessed in those counts. Now we'll be in recess about 15 minutes.
Thank you. Court stands in recess.
My mama told me I should beware. I'll tell you a story about mean people who take use of innocent girls. Don't mean to scare you, but be careful. Maybe think twice before you walk alone. Call somebody to take you home. Look over your shoulder when you go that way. This world might take you to a bad, bad place.
Ms. Boswell, I'm Gene Scott. How are you?
Pretty good.
We're here today because the jury's trying to decide how long Megan will have to stay in prison. I want you to, I guess, Your name is Mary Boswell.
Not Mary Boswell.
Okay. How do you know Megan?
Sir,
How do you know Megan?
she's my granddaughter.
Okay. Are you Tommy Boswell's mother?
Yes, sir.
And obviously you've known Megan her whole life.
All of her life, I started keeping her from the time she was 2 months old till she was grown, off and on, not all the time, but off and on.
Why was that in part because of problems between your son and her mother, Angela?
Sir,
Was that because her parents were having
no,
problems?
she just loved me and her papaw, and she stayed with us, and we loved her, and so we'd keep her a lot.
Okay. Were you aware of the violence issues between Tommy and Angela?
No, I didn't live in their home or nothing. I don't know nothing about what went on in their home, sir.
Okay.
We'd pick her up and keep her until she want to go back and like that, off and on.
Okay. And have you always lived down there on the same property Tommy lives on? Or?
I've now lived there for maybe 20 years, 21 or 2 or something like that.
She lived there almost all Megan's life.
Yeah, yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. And you're aware, you told me, I think, one of Megan's role models was your husband, your late husband?
Sir,
Your late husband, he was one of Megan's role models?
yes, we loved her like she belonged to us.
Okay. And, when did he pass, ma'am?
11 and a half years ago. Soon be 12 this summer.
So that would have been when Megan was, I guess, what?
Yeah, maybe 12 years old or something.
12 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that take an impact on her?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And are you here asking this jury for leniency today?
Yes, sir, I am.
Asking them not to give her a sentence of life without parole?
I hope they don't, sir. I love her like I hope they don't give her the sentence like that. I'd love to give her my home if I could take her home today. That's how much I love her.
I understand. Thank you, Ms. Boswell. Answer any of Mr. Harper or Ms. Massingill's questions.
No questions, sir.
Ms. Boswell, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm leaving. Thank you.
Everyone down there.
Gail Kite.
Ms. Kite, do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, ma'am?
I do.
I see. Speak into that microphone.
Ms. Kite, good morning.
Good morning.
Just so I make sure here, spelling your last name, is it K-Y-T-E?
It is.
And Ms. Kite, you've previously testified in this hearing as the state's witness, is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, thank you for coming back for this part of it. I know Ms. Boswell appreciates that. How long have you been working in foster care?
15 years.
Do you remember when Megan Boswell came to you?
I do.
Do you recall what kind of shape she was in or state?
She was in bad shape. She was one of the worst children that I'd brought in as far as neglect.
What do you mean by that?
She was very malnourished. She's very skinny. Her hair was matted to her head with lice. Impossible to even get a comb through.
Okay. Well, when she came to you, were you given any background? I imagine in foster care you're given background or information of where this child is coming from. Were you giving any of that?
I was.
And what were you preparing for?
In the intake papers, it mentioned trauma. It mentioned rape.
Did it give you any background or any information about her family background or makeup?
Not really.
Okay. Now, you said she came to you with lice. What did you do to try to help Megan?
Well, I took her to a beauty shop because there was no way to even begin to get a comb through. It was horrible. The beauty shop wouldn't touch it. They told me I offered to pay him $100 to go out back to cut her hair. And they said that they couldn't do it. Finally, the agency that we were with found a beautician that met me at a church that was willing to come in and give Megan a haircut. They gave her a bob, which looked really cute on her. But even after that we could get a comb through, it took close to 3 weeks, maybe a month, to get rid of the lice. Were just so bad. I had to get prescription medicine from the doctor. We got 2 bottles of that. I bought the comb that you run through that's supposed to kill the lice. And I know I practically traumatized the poor child, because we'd go out on the porch and I'd run that comb through trying to make sure we got all the lice, and she'd sit there and tears would run down her hair. She got tired of me. It wasn't a pleasant situation. And then even when you do that, you still got to go through, you've got to thoroughly clean the bedding. Everything in the room has to be taken down, washed in hot water. But it was a rough time for her, very rough.
And you may have said, but she came to you how old?
She was 17 years old.
She was pregnant.
17, pregnant, scared, didn't have a place to go.
And you believe that she had been raped or violently sexually assaulted. Were you given any background or information about her family, her mom and her dad?
I knew Mom was in and out of jail, and I knew her daddy owned a business.
Okay. Were you able to come to the opinion that she essentially came from a dysfunctional family?
I did.
Okay. And how long did she stay with you?
She stayed 4 months. When she came in, we got to work, got rid of the lice, got her registered for school. Where she was pregnant, she chose to do online schooling. She worked really hard getting her diploma. If a test didn't go right, she was on the phone the next day with the counselor getting it reset. I never had any problems trying to get her to do her schoolwork or anything. She hung with it.
Did she ever cause you any problems, disciplinary-wise or anything like that?
No.
Never?
No.
And did she seem to be thriving in a structured environment?
She did. She did.
Was she making friends?
She did.
Did she seem to be progressing and coming out of the state she was in when she came to you?
She very much so.
And she was with you for 4 months. Did you form a bond with her?
Oh, I did. We took up together immediately. It was during the winter. She learned me how to play card games. Winter days, we'd sit there and we'd play. Baby'd sleep. We'd play cards. But we formed a bond.
Did you take her to doctor's appointments?
I did.
How did she seem to feel about becoming a mother?
She was very excited.
Did you have conversations with her about that?
I did.
Did she seem to fully understand her roles and responsibilities of what was going to be required of her?
She did. Megan practically raised her younger sister Charlotte and her brother Elijah. She had plenty of experience with younger children.
How did you know that?
Well, mostly from conversations with Megan, and just I could tell by the way she took care of Evelyn at the house. You know, she knew how to heat a bottle. She knew how to change the diapers. She got up when the baby cried.
Did you ever have to tell her to do those things?
No. Me and my husband never once woke up those 4 months when Evelyn woke up in the middle of the night. Megan would take care of her very well.
And I asked you, and I want to clarify that, if you ever took her to doctor's appointments, she was with you when she was with you. She came to you pregnant. Did you go to the prenatal appointments?
I did.
And did you go to follow-up appointments with Evelyn's pediatrician?
I did.
Okay. So you were involved through the whole process, really?
Those 4 months, yes.
Okay. At some point in time, was Megan taken from your home and placed back somewhere else?
She done trial visits to go back to Tommy's.
Okay.
There was a process in the foster care system.
I understand.
She done weekend visits, or at first it was just visits, and then it led to weekend visits.
How did she feel about that?
She seemed okay with it.
Eventually, was Megan placed back in the custody and care of her family?
She was. She went back to Tommy's house.
Tommy, you mean her father?
Yes,
Okay. And did you maintain contact with her?
I did.
How often?
We texted back and forth over it wasn't a daily time, but I want to say once a month, couple times, sometimes couple times a week. It's just according to what was going on and what pictures she had took of Evelyn.
When you were talking to her, did you eventually learn that maybe things were kind of getting back off the tracks again?
I did. In April, I received a call from her foster care worker saying that Megan had needed some help and would, even though she had was out of the foster care system, would I be willing to go and help her out? And I said, no problem. So I called Megan. She told me that her mother had dropped her off at a church. She had drove off and left her and Evelyn there. She had took Evelyn's diaper bag, the baby's supplies. So I told her I'd be right there. I went and picked her up. We went to Walmart, bought baby bottles, formula, diapers, the stuff that a baby would need.
Where did you take her?
We went back to my home. She spent the night. Her and Evelyn they took showers, a good night's sleep. But then the next morning, she wanted to go back to her mother's family's home.
Where's that at?
Now, I'm not sure. The place that I took, her grandfather was in the hospital. And she wanted to go there to meet up with her family. So when she left my home, I drove her to the hospital in Kingsport, and she assured me that she would be perfectly fine, and her and Evelyn got out.
It'd be fair to say that Megan wasn't getting maybe the familial support from her parents that she was needing at that time.
Yes.
Okay. I imagine over this time, Miss Kite, that did you ever meet Tommy Boswell Sr. or her mother, Angela?
I had never met Angela, but I'd met Tommy several times.
You said you agreed that she probably come from a dysfunctional family. Let me ask you this. She lived with you for 4 months and you stayed in contact with her after she moved out. It's your opinion, you know her, you talked to her. Do you think Megan ever knew what a normal family looked like?
No. No.
Did she crave that?
I think so.
Was she wanting that for Evelyn?
I think so.
Well, it's obvious why we're here today. You know why you're testifying. Are you asking this jury to just give her life?
I am, with the possibility of parole. This child has been traumatized. She's made bad mistakes that has to be paid for. But I think she deserves a chance to come back out to the real world. I don't think she's irredeemable. I think she can become a functioning citizen.
Ms. Scott, I thank you again. If you would answer any questions that the state has for you.
Nothing from the state judge.
Ready to go, Judge? Ready. Ma'am, state your name for the record.
Angela Boswell.
You are Megan Boswell's mother.
I am.
Okay. Ms. Boswell, you know the purpose of being here today.
I do.
I want to ask you some about Megan's home life and growing up, but I guess I want to ask you first a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
And I'm asking you these questions, Ms. Boswell. I'm not trying to embarrass you or cast any aspersions.
No.
You married Tommy Boswell when you were how old?
First time 15.
You speak into that microphone just a little more, please.
The first time 15.
Okay. And when did you become pregnant with your first child with him?
I had my first in April and turned 16 in July. So,
Okay. And who was that child?
Tommy Jr.
Okay. And then you had Megan at some point. How old were you when you had Megan?
There's 8 years difference. I was almost 24.
It's okay. So, let's talk about Megan's life growing up. Would it be fair to say that during her lifetime she's witnessed drug use between you and her father?
Yes.
What type of drugs?
Opiates, mainly.
Scoot up and speak into that so the jury can hear you.
Opiates, mainly.
Okay. Did that drug use lead to other problems?
Yeah. Arguments, fighting, yes.
Okay. You say there
strife.
Strife.
Is what it brings, yes. Non-stop.
Is that something that went on pretty much her entire childhood growing up?
Yeah, from the time she was pretty little, yeah.
Okay. Good. Now, did she witness fights between you and her father?
Yes.
Okay. I think at some point her father was convicted of aggravated assault and kidnapping.
Yes.
Were you the victim in that?
Yes.
Do you remember ever taking Megan to any AA meetings with you?
Yes, I did.
How old was she when you did that?
She was probably about 7 or 8. First ones I started taking her to. 7 or 8, 8 or 9, somewhere around in there. Yeah.
Now due to the strife in your home, was she raised by her grandparents to some degree?
Yes.
Okay. What were their names?
Mary and Danny Boswell.
Okay. Mary Boswell, would that be who's known as a mommy?
Yes.
These problems, do you feel that it's partly your fault, the problems Megan's experienced?
No, absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Now, unfortunately, your problems, they went on up into, we saw a video in here of you being brought down from the jail to talk with her in 2020.
Yeah.
So even up until the time she went to jail, you were in and out of jail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I've been.
Have you been convicted of numerous crimes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you managed to straighten up at this point?
I have, yes.
You hoping to?
Yes, I pray every day and just, to do my best and try. I've learned the importance of a mother's role, but not for Megan, I didn't.
All right.
I failed her on that miserably.
And you're here asking the jury to give her a sentence of life as opposed to life without?
Yes. Maggie is, at her core, she is a generous, kind-hearted person. And through all Maggie's went through, Maggie still has potential. You know, she was trying so hard. You know, she didn't repeat my mistakes. Maggie learned from my mistakes. She was trying to do better with Eve. You know, she wasn't repeating. And I think she got saddled with, you know, just because of my mistakes that she did those, and that was not it. That was not the case with Evan.
Would it be fair to say she didn't have a good role model for the mother she
No,
be?
no, she did not.
Answer any of Ms. Massengill or Mr. Harper's questions.
I don't have any questions, Judge.
Thank you,
Remember you told me things your mama said. She never gave you enough affection. Let you run around. She didn't know you're bound to feel alone and such neglection. You made me feel the need to fix the past in me and show overlovingness. You feed me, pushes me further. World full of bad, I can't take much longer. Hold tight, you'll see I'm right. I don't tell you nothing just to mess with your mind. Don't be cold and act like you know some things, my child. Make us all feel small. Remember you told me I should watch out. You see now I will have a good intentions. So keep your eyes stretched and sharp your senses. I'm telling
Madam Foreperson, did the jury come to a unanimous decision for sentencing on counts 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you would deliver the verdict for count 1.
We, the jury, unanimously agree that the defendant shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life.
And did each member of the jury sign the form? All right. If that is each individual juror's verdict, please raise your right hand. Let the record reflect each juror raise their right hand. In count 2,
We, the jury, unanimously agree that the defendant shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life.
and did each juror sign the verdict form?
Yes, Your Honor.
If that is each individual juror's verdict, please raise your right hand. Record reflect that each juror has raised their right hand. And in both counts 1 and 2, did you find an aggravating circumstance?
Yes,
Okay. And in count 3, did you reach a unanimous verdict?
yes, Your Honor.
And if you'll deliver that.
We, the jury, unanimously agree that the defendant shall be sentenced to imprisonment for life.
And did each juror sign the form?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you find an aggravating circumstance?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, if the verdict that's been delivered for count 3 is each individual juror's verdict, please raise your right hand. Let the record reflect that each juror has raised their right hand. General, do you desire an individual poll?
There you go.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
At this time, I propose that we release the jury from this case. Any opposition from the state?
Okay.
Defense?
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service. If you'll go with the officer. In count 1, the jury of your peers, having set your punishment, you'll be sentenced to life imprisonment. In count 2, you'll be sentenced to life imprisonment. In count 3, you'll be sentenced to life imprisonment. We'll have to set this for sentencing hearing where we'll deal with merger, other issues, as well as sentencing in counts 4 through 20. Does she waive the 45 days, Mr. Scott?
She does.
Sentencing in this case for May the 8th.
Judge, that is not good for me. I have a murder trial in Carter County the very next month.
It's not good.
May the 16th.
I expect the Carter County murder trial. We've got 2 weeks blocked off.
May the 23rd.
Yes, sir, I'll be here.
Sentencing will be held May 23rd. Pre-sentence report needs to be filed no later than April the 15th.
Judge, you have May the 22nd instead of the 23rd.
I do.
We'll use that instead.
We can.
Thank you.
Is that good with the state?
Yes, Judge.
All right. May 22nd. We'll say at 1:30.
Yes.
At 1:30 p.m. Report by the Department of Corrections be filed no later than April the 15th.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else we need to take up?
Nothing else from the state.
Mr. Horn?
Yes, Judge. I think from this point going forward, since Mr. Scott was primary counsel in this case, I would make an oral motion to be relieved as co-counsel on behalf of Megan Boswell
All right.
going forward.
you'll be relieved. You are appearing as co-counsel pro bono.
Yes, Your Honor.
The court thanks you for your service.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Court will be recessed till Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. for the next trial.
Thank you, Judge.
If you lose direction, just hold tight. You'll see I'm right. I don't
Scott said he left closing statements expecting a different verdict on the murder charges than the one that arrived this morning.
I was surprised and I'm disappointed in it. I personally don't agree with the verdict. I respect the jury's prerogative, but I don't feel like the state was able to prove those homicide counts beyond a reasonable doubt. But reasonable people can differ, I guess, and I'll pursue an appeal.
Scott repeated what he'd argued in the courtroom when it came to that doubt, that he believes testimony from 2 different medical examiners simply didn't do enough to shed solid light on how Evelyn Boswell died. Jurors clearly saw that testimony differently from both doctors, and they thought it was sufficient to prove that Megan did kill her daughter, Evelyn.
You know, again, there were, a lot of back and forth about the medical examiners, about whether or not Megan was the sole actor in all of this. But again, the jury saw through all that and they said, you know what, she's guilty. We find her guilty on this. And we also thought they were going to deliberate a lot longer than what they did. But 4.5 hours after, almost a week and a half in court.
Yeah, I mean, a tremendous amount of evidence, interviews. They had to listen to hours of interviews. So the speed with which that verdict came back was perhaps a little surprising and certainly seemed indicative of them probably having felt like it was pretty clear and convincing evidence that she was guilty on all of those counts. Asking that jury to show some mercy and some clemency and saying that she felt like Megan Boswell was redeemable. Talk about that interview that she gave for you and her knowledge of Megan's character.
Well, obviously, Gail spent more time with her than I have in that type of situation. Most of my conversations, all of my conversations with Megan have been sitting in a jail cell talking about her case, but she seems to be a very positive person. She seems strong in her faith, and she's going to handle this, and she seems like she'll move through this adversity. She will have a chance to get out of prison when she's 69.
Yeah, I mean, did you feel like that was a win today, though? Being able, that she will possibly get out of prison?
I would say that obviously it was better than a life without sentence. Assuming she lives to be 69 years old, she will be released. So maybe she'll have some time at the end of her life to enjoy.
Is there something about cases that are this horrifying and go on for this long and get this much community attention that raises the possibility of a feeling of retribution in the community being higher than it might otherwise be?
Well, certainly, if you look at the comments on the news articles, Facebook comments, people seem to be very much up in arms over this case. It's a sad case. I know I've been criticized a lot in the media because of defending Megan, but everyone's entitled to a defense, and that's what I hope I provided her. I tried to do that to the best of my ability.
It sounds like that's something you're not stopping today.
Absolutely not.
You decided to pull 3 witnesses for this part of the trial. Why did you decide to do that, then, and talk about why you decided to bring Angela up?
As far as today was just witnesses, there are 2 phases of the trial, and all witness testimony has to be relevant. So these witnesses, their testimony wouldn't have been relative to guilt or innocence, but it was relevant to sentencing. Her mom, to her credit, come up here and testified that she wasn't a good mother. And I respect her for that, because that had to be hard to go on TV and take that responsibility, but she did it.
Do you know if Angela Boswell knew that she had warrants out for her arrest?
I don't know that. I imagine yes.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to double. You guys can go ahead.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Can we redo the first part because they were not rolling on it back at the station?
Yeah.
But you guys can go ahead. We'll let them break down and then we'll just start the first couple questions.
So,
Sorry, I was going to ask that off camera, but I was going to forget.
This one's mine.
This one's yours.
That one you did.
You think she did?
Well, I mean, she missed court on it, so somebody that's been to court as much as Angela would probably understand that she did an arrest warrant.
tell you nothing, just to
Can you just tell us your initial reaction to the decision today?
Well, we're obviously pleased with the decision that the jury made. It's been 5 long years since all of this first started, and it's a lot of hard work by a lot of people. So it was very satisfying to get the jury's verdict.
Normally, we sometimes hear a victim impact statement in cases like this, and we didn't hear one this time. Maybe a little bit from Tommy Boswell, but it seems like you are the advocates for Evelyn. What do you have to say about that?
That's a complicated question, to say the least. Obviously, there are a lot of emotions in this case, even within the Boswell family. I mean, you all saw Tommy testify. I mean, his daughter was the defendant. His granddaughter was the victim in this case. A lot of emotions. Same thing with Angela. So, but we're fortunate, and I would be remiss without talking about the incredible work that was done by law enforcement in this case. And as a community, could not be prouder to have those folks who really, from the get-go, from the time she was reported missing, who've really been her biggest advocates during these 5 years, to see, ultimately what we realized here in the courtroom today, which was justice for Evelyn.
Even with that exhaustive investigation, all of the interviews, all of the forensic evidence that was gathered, Ms. Massengill even acknowledged we still may never know exactly what happened. Did you have to rely on the jurors' common sense and taking might be a shred of doubt and separating that from what reasonable doubt is in this case?
To some extent. I mean, I think always coming from a prosecutor, it's I guess easy to say, well, we think you should decide the case this way. But this really was, a textbook example of, just excellent police work. For us to be able to come into the courtroom, to be able to present a case where you really don't have direct evidence. I mean, we didn't have a confession. We didn't have a video of the crime being committed. You had to rely on a lot of circumstantial evidence, and as we argued during closing argument, you're going to have to use your common sense to fill in some of those gaps that were there. So yes.
General Massengill, during closing, you talked about the baby Evelyn mattered. Where'd you come up with that?
Because it's the truth. She mattered and she deserved to live, and I wanted the jury to know that.
How hard was it working on this case and seeing all those images, the baby in the trash can?
It's very difficult, and it's difficult to show something like that to a jury or to the public, but it's important that we show everyone what Megan Boswell did. It's difficult, but we're willing to do it to find justice.
Can you talk about the impact that this community has had these questions for 5 years now, and finally had answers?
Right, and I think that was difficult. Unfortunately, we made some very purposeful decisions as we were prosecuting the case, which I think a lot of people kind of took umbrage with. We did not release much about this case on purpose because we wanted to try the case here in Sullivan County. And I think that caused a lot of heartburn among people not to have those answers, not to know that information about the case. And we, kind of told them just to be patient because we wanted to try the case in the courtroom. And we feel like that's what we did.
Was there a piece of evidence or something that you think really sealed the deal for the jurors on making this decision?
I don't know that there was any one singular piece of evidence. I think the difficult thing in this case really is those interviews with Megan and the fact that, her story kept changing, kept shifting. And, there were lots of little things, that kind of ruled other things out. But I think ultimately, it was a lot of her own words that were her undoing in this case.
And what about how the baby was found? That is something that I think has hit home, and you could tell from day one, from the images you showed, jurors were crying, she was crying.
Right.
What do you want to talk about with that?
I mean, it's disturbing. I mean, it truly is. And, we made a decision in trying this case because, there were a lot of charges. Obviously, the lies and stuff that she was telling the jury we didn't want the focus of the case to be on that. I mean, to us, that was the easy kind of low-hanging fruit, so to speak. We wanted the focus to be on the homicide. We wanted it to be on Evelyn and what happened to her, and that was why we kind of hit the jury right in the face right out of the gate. And so, you know, like I said, that was strategy on our part as far as, you know, how we kind of put the trial together. We wanted them to, right from the get-go, know that this was a homicide case. This wasn't just a somebody lied to the police case.
Megan will be eligible for parole when she's about 69 years old. As a prosecutor team, you asked for life without the possibility of parole. What is your take now that the jury decided to give her a chance?
You want to answer it?
We will continue to fight to keep her in custody until, for her natural life, if possible.
Can she face more years than that, though, with the other charges that she received?
She can. The judge will still have to sentence her on all the false report counts, the tampering, the abuse of a corpse, the failure to report charge. So in theory, he could run those consecutive, and he could stack that time on top of what she's already received for the homicide.
Is
So
that something you all get to urge him to do in
we
your
do.
sentencing report?
We do. There'll be a sentencing report, and then we'll have a sentencing hearing. That's what's set the end of May, and then we'll go from there. Both sides will have a chance to argue what her sentence should be on those.
Do you know how many years she looks at for those additional charges, too?
Yes, the false reports should be looking at 2 to 4 years on those. The tampering charge will be 3 to 6, and I think the abuse of a corpse and the failure to report are both 1 to 2 years on those.
I know that law enforcement, even one of the agents or one of the people who testified said that everyone else was ruled out, including Hunter Wood. But clearly, whether it was in the community or certainly on the defense's strategy, that was an if that they wanted to put out there. How important were those text messages that you guys were able to put up, showing what was going on, what apparently was going on, at least in Hunter Wood's mind, as this child was now known to be missing?
All right. You want to comment?
I think they're very, very important. I don't know how you can overcome that, in my mind. When we found those, I don't know there's an explanation, for them.
Was there anything else y'all want us to know? I know it's been a very long, almost 2 weeks.
Well, like I said before, I mean, I think, if the community ever had any doubt about how hard law enforcement works, I hope they had a chance to see that in action in this trial, because like I said, you really could not have asked for any more diligent, exhausting efforts than what we saw from our local law enforcement here at the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office, TBI, FBI. I mean, it truly was a coordinated effort.
Is this the first time in a while, too? I know that the judge mentioned it, but for you all, that a jury has been sequestered?
It was. I don't know that I was part of the last one, but I know it's been about 20 years since the last time we sequestered a jury. So, anything else?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you all.
Take this mark back to where it came from. Leave me out, this is not mine. To carry with me through my life. Hope these scars can heal with time.